Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kathy Schmitz, Executive Director of the Vilas County Economic Development Corporation. And thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn Ask the Experts, answering your questions about business taxes, insurance, and grants and loans. So before we begin, though, we extend our special thanks to Associated Bank for their generous support of this program and who also support our mission to build a strong, resilient Northwoods economy. Our panel of experts today are John Chamberlain, a CPA and VCEDC board member. He'll be covering taxes and accounting. And we have Tammy Clendingen with the U.S. Business Administration covering grants and loans. And we have Mike Wieland, who is an agent with Clinner Insurance here in Eagle River, covering your business insurance questions and information. And so what questions do you have for John, Tammy, and Mike? Please put them in the chat and we'll answer them right after their brief remarks. John, you're first up, so take it away.
Okay, well, we'll get the boring accountant out of the way first and can go up from there. As Kathy said, my name is John Chamberlain. I'm a partner in my own accounting firm in Lake Geneva. I've been doing accounting for over 40 years and have had my own practice for 25 years. Even though our office is located in Lake Geneva, we do have clients all over the state of Wisconsin as well as all over the country. So it's not just Walworth County. We offer services and income tax preparation for individuals, businesses, nonprofits. We do financial statement compilations, reviews, and audits for businesses, nonprofits, school districts, and homeowners associations. And we also offer complete bookkeeping services, such as the whole payroll process, data entry, bank reconciliations. Plus, we also do QuickBooks consultation. As far as individual income taxes go, we know everything that there is to know about individual income taxes in Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. Not coincidentally, those are the 9 states that do not have individual income tax. So anybody can be an expert in those states. A couple of definitions before we get too far along here. A deduction is what you use to reduce your taxes. A loophole is something someone else uses to reduce their taxes. And then most basic accounting and tax questions can be answered in 2 simple ways. It depends, or what do you want it to be? So shouldn't be too difficult. Getting on to some of the more recent topics, and one of the most talked about topics in the world, in the tax world, is not really even a tax issue. And that's the reporting requirements for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, also known as FinCEN. FinCEN is part of the Department of Treasury, but the reporting requirements have really nothing to do with income taxes. It's more just a reporting requirement for any existing corporations, LLCs, LLPs, and any other entities that register with the state agency. For Wisconsin, that agency would be the Department of Financial Institutions, but many of the other states, registration would be done through the Secretary of State. So any entity formed prior to January 1st of 24 would need to register with FinCEN prior to the end of this calendar year. And then any entity that's created in 2024 would have 90 days from the date of formation to get their reporting into FinCEN, as well as then any changes to the 24 information that was filed would have 90 days to make any of those updates with FinCEN. After 24, the reporting requirements for new entities and any changes goes to 30 days. So it's something that needs to be done instantaneously. So it should be on everybody's radar. Getting into the business tax area, nothing real recent that has been changed, but back in 2018, when the tax laws were changed, one of the big changes was the qualified business income deduction for any of your pass-through entities, the partnerships, S corporations, and so forth. They are allowed, as well as self-employed individuals, are allowed a 20% deduction of their qualified business income to help reduce their taxable income. The other big change from 2018 was the elimination of the entertainment deduction. So no more deduction allowed for sporting events, cultural events, and anything else that might fall under the guise of entertainment. And then for a business owner and or an employee, one of the best deductions you can make is a contribution to a retirement plan. Business gets a deduction for that, or you get your wages reduced for that, but yet you still have that money to draw on down the road. Some of the recent individual changes, again, as part of the 2018 Act, the state income tax and real estate deductions are now capped at $10,000. And that limitation, in conjunction with the substantially higher standard deduction, means many more individuals are taking a standard deduction as opposed to itemizing. And what a lot of people have done, those that are now required to draw on their IRAs are now making distributions out of the IRAs directly to a charitable organization, which then allows them, in essence, to get a deduction for that, in that they don't have to report that income that goes directly to the charity as taxable income. So if you're taking a $10,000 distribution and that goes to a charity, you're in effect reducing your taxable income by that $10,000. And even though you may not be able to itemize on your federal return, sometimes if you're a Wisconsin resident, there may be a small credit that would be available to you for your mortgage interest and charitable donations and any allowable medical deductions. One of the questions I get most often is how much I can take in the way of a charitable contribution. Well, the answer, of course, is it depends. As long as you have receipts for your donations, proper documentation, you can claim basically as much as you have documentation for. For cash contributions, if it's something that is more than $250 over the course of the year, you should be getting some sort of acknowledgement from the charitable organization that you made that contribution and did not receive any services or product in return. If you've got non-cash contributions, taking a load of household goods or clothing to Goodwill, you need to keep an itemized list of what you had donated, 5 shirts at $3 a shirt or whatever the case may be. And then, if you've got a large amount that you're taking to Goodwill or someplace, certainly would help to take pictures of the items that are being donated as well. And it's nothing that you necessarily need to keep paper copies of. The government does now accept PDFs of invoices and other records for any of your donations or other tax deductions. And then one last thing that is kind of new this year, and that goes back to the residential energy credits. They made a big change on that for this year, where it used to be basically a lifetime credit, and once you maxed out the credit, you were done. Now they've gone to an annual limitation on that credit of $1,200 per year, which breaks out to about $600 for air conditioners and furnaces, $600 for windows and skylights, $500 a door, $250 each, and then $150 for an energy audit. And one big change there too, going forward after 2024, if you're making any of these qualified improvements, the items must come from a qualified manufacturer, and you must submit the product identification number when you file for the credit. So it's not just a matter of putting down in your return that you spent $5,000 on a furnace and want to take a credit. You need special documentation in order to qualify for that credit. That's about all I have as far as income tax changes. But one thing kind of off topic is the current climate change, whatever you want to call it, and the fact that there's no snow and the impact it's having on the businesses in the area. And this is a good time to kind of evaluate your business and take a look at what planning you can do both in the short term and the long term to kind of mitigate the impacts of something like this. Particularly for bars and restaurants, maybe consider offering specials on certain items on some nights, and maybe changing to a limited menu to reduce your overall food costs and potential spoilage and waste and so forth if your business is certainly down. Other item might be consider implementing rolling layoffs so staff can at least claim unemployment if they're not getting very many days of work. And then on a long-term basis, develop a plan to possibly squirrel away at least some funds to cushion a blow, or once hopefully things turn around come summertime, if you don't have a line of credit in place for emergencies, that would be the time to do it. The time to borrow money or to set up lines of credit and so forth is when things are good, not when you need it the most. So other than that, that's all I had. Taxes are certainly a complex issue and constantly changing, so having a professional on your team is very important. Thank you.
Great, thank you, John, very much, and I appreciate your insightfulness on the current situation in the Northwoods here with the lack of snow. So with that, that's a great transition to Tammy, who's going to be incorporating some of that into her remarks with some information that is coming out today about that as well. So with that, Tammy, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about loans and grants.
Great. Thanks so much, Kathy. Thank you all for joining today. It's great to have this great group here. So, as Kathy had mentioned, my name is Tammy Clendunning, and I've been with the SBA since 2013. Prior to joining the SBA, I spent 25 years in lending. We have had a number of small businesses. We continue to have a small business now as well. So, kind of in the same fight as all of you. So, just a little bit of that. My role with the SBA is to provide information to small businesses on the various programs that are out there, to act as a connector to the various resources, programs, and things that are out there for you. So if there's anything you need from me, you can just reach out. And certainly we're very familiar with the various programs throughout the state and the different areas, so we can help to connect you there. So what I'll talk about today is really what the SBA has to offer to small businesses. There's three main programs that the SBA offers: our loan programs or our funding programs, technical assistance, and then also federal contracting information. So I'll start out first and foremost with the loan programs. We have loan programs that range anywhere from, maybe $50 or $100 all the way up to $5 million. There are a number of different programs out there. There are some specialty programs that are for specific needs, such as international trade or things of that nature. We also have some small loan programs too. Our main program is our 7A program. And with that, it's kind of a general purpose loan program, if you will. And with that, the loan proceeds can be used for anything from buying a business, starting a business, buying property, renovating property, inventory, just about anything that a business would need. And we also, under that program, have our small loan program too, that's done directly through our express lenders. And that program goes up to 500,000, and it's a little bit faster paced moving program, if you will. All of the loan programs that we'll talk about initially here are done through our lending partners. So the SBA doesn't do direct lending, with the exception of the disaster program, but we work with lending partners. And what the SBA does is the SBA gives a guarantee to those lenders on behalf of the business to help support that loan, whether that's through our 7A product or our microloan program, which goes up to $50,000, or our Community Advantage product that goes up to $350,000. We work with the vast majority of the lenders in the state of Wisconsin, whether that's your local bank, your local credit union. We also have some nonprofit lenders throughout the state that do some of our other programs. And the nice part about that is sometimes they're not bound by some of the same restrictions that your traditional banks and credit unions are, so they can do things a little bit differently with those loan products. Oh, and one thing I should mention too, so this federal fiscal year, so through September 30th of 2024, for loans up to $1 million, there are no guarantee fees. So with that guarantee that the SBA gives to your bank or credit union, typically there's guarantee fees that a business must pay, and those are ratcheted depending on the dollar amount of the loan. But again, this year there's no guarantee fees up to for loans for up to $1 million. So that's pretty significant. It saves a business thousands and thousands of dollars. So if you're in the market for any funding, this is a great year to do it. In the entire time that I've been with the SBA, we've never seen the guarantees fee waivers go up to loans of $1 million. Traditionally, it's more in the $150,000 loan range. So again, great time to get some funding if you need that. One of the questions that we get just about every single day is what grants are available? Where can I get the free money? And unfortunately, there really isn't grants available to own and operate a business. Typically, the types of grants that we'll see are more facade grants. So maybe there's a downtown that's looking to spruce up the downtown, so they'll offer a reimbursement type grant. Sometimes there's business plan competitions that offer a grant of some sort. Sometimes you'll have private entities like maybe a Chase Bank or other entities that will offer some sort of grant opportunity, but those are pretty far and few between. I know after coming out of the pandemic, there were a number of grant programs that were available both on a federal basis as well as on a state basis. Those are actually expired now, and more typically, there aren't grants available. So we always recommend reaching out locally, maybe to your local economic development office or your local resource partner, because if there is something very locally, we may not be aware of it, but perhaps that those local folks might have more access to it. But again, overall, there really aren't grants available to start or operate a business. I'll save the EIDL loan till the very, very end here because we'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have technical assistance programs available to small businesses. Those are partners that the SBA works with that will help a small business with just about anything that they need. So whether that's developing a business plan, developing a growth plan, getting your digital marketing set up, getting your website set up, starting your business, applying for a loan. They really help with just about anything that a business might need. And they do that on a no-cost basis because the SBA provides financing to them. So the main partners that we work with for that are your local SBDC or your Small Business Development Center. They're located at the 4-year campuses throughout the state, as well as a couple of other locations as well. Great resource to have. We have SCORE, which used to stand for the Service Corps of Retired Executives. Now they just go by the acronym. And those are high-level executives or business owners that really just choose to give their time back to the small business community. We also have our women's business centers. So those women's business centers are WIBIC and Western Wisconsin Women's Business Center out of Eau Claire. They can also work with you. They also do work with men. About 35% of the clients that they work with are men. So just keep that in mind. And then we also have our Veterans Business Outreach Center, or the VBOC, and that is housed by WIBIC here in the state of Wisconsin. And then we have our community navigators as well, of which, of course, Kathy is a part of. It is economic development folks associated with Nicolet College up in the northern part of the state. So great resources to take advantage of. I tell the small businesses always to get in touch with them because truthfully, the help that you can get through those partners, if you were paying a consultant or an outside source, you'd pay thousands of dollars, and they can provide that to you at no cost. We also, for those businesses that might be interested in contracting, as you know, the federal government is the largest purchaser of goods and services throughout the world. And so we have contracting programs that are available through the SBA, whether that's certifications or set-asides, hub zone programs. Also a business development program, something to keep in mind for that. We can always get more information. And I'll briefly touch on the EIDL loan. As Kathy had mentioned early in the presentation, the disaster programs that the SBA offers are really the only direct lending that we do. And although we can't get a disaster declaration simply for a lack of snow, fortunately, we do have some open disaster declarations from last summer that do allow businesses to apply for an EIDL loan or an economic injury disaster loan. And what that is a working capital loan for small businesses to help get you through this difficult time. It is not intended as an expansion tool. You cannot refinance debt with that, but it's again, working capital to help you buy inventory, pay payroll, make current loan payments, things of that nature. That does go through the SBA. Kathy has information on those loan products as well as those disaster declarations. Vilas County in particular is included in on 3 different disaster declarations with application deadlines that expire May 6th, May 13th, and May 29th. So if you're a business that would like to apply for that EIDL loan, you can do that at our website. Again, Kathy has more information. There's different disaster application numbers that you need to reference, but those are important dates because if you miss those dates, you're no longer eligible for the EIDL loan. And again, that's May 6th, May 13th, and May 29th. It does not matter which one you would apply under. You can apply under any one of those 3. But the way that that works is when a disaster is declared, that application window is only open for 9 months. So that's why these dates are coming up, because these disaster declarations were made last year. And again, how you would apply for that is because of the lack of precipitation, it has negatively affected your business. So we can talk more about that. Kathy's got the details on that as well as how to apply and all the particulars, but just wanted to give you a quick heads up on that. Kathy, back to you.
Great, thank you, Tammy. And what I'm realizing now is we could do an hour with each of you at some point, and we might. Great, thank you, Tammy. And Mike, Mike is our insurance agent with Clitter Insurance. They have offices in Medford, Eagle River, around the areas. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Weiland with Clitter Insurance, and I'll start with just sharing a bit of information about our agency and move on to maybe bigger insurance topics, current day topics. But so Clitter Insurance, as Kathy mentioned, we have offices sprinkled throughout Wisconsin. Most notably, we're in Medford, we're in Eagle River, St. Germain, a few other spots. We service the state of Wisconsin, of course, to every corner of the state and beyond, as far as our customers go. So call that the Midwest and neighboring, or Wisconsin and neighboring states. And our agency, maybe some of you today have heard of or maybe seen some things about Clitter Insurance, and that very well could be related to the forest products industry. We are very much involved in the forest products industry as far as logging and trucking, those industries go. But we are certainly involved in things beyond that as well. As a lot of us know, that big business here in Wisconsin, the forest products related things. And as an agency, our focus is really on property and casualty risk. We do offer some life insurance products as well, but property casualty, we're talking about commercial coverage for your building, your property, your belongings, your general liability coverage. And I'm going to simplify all of that just for the sake of time today. But as far as the types of businesses that our customers are involved with, or that we help them with, it's pretty wide net. Everything from the retail world to manufacturing to hospitality to service related risks. It's a pretty wide net that we handle for our customers. As far as, say, new folks that are maybe just considering starting a business, I'm going to just touch on that for a moment. Insurance it's a funny thing because you talk with your accountant, maybe you talk with your attorney, and sometimes you don't think about insurance until, hey, I'm going to open up a business and I probably should have some insurance. That sometimes is forgotten, but it is very important. And every business owner or operator at a minimum needs to have liability coverage in place to protect themselves. And that looks very differently depending on who you are and what you do and what your business involves. And so, speaking on behalf of our agency, we're pretty proud about educating our customers and talking to them about insurance. And it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a thing. You can't go online and click a button and get some insurance. It needs to be tailored to you and your business. Again, depending on what it is that you do. We spend a good bit of time with our customers. I'm going to broaden this a little bit here to current day. We're in what's called a hard insurance market, and I will not get into the details of that here, but this is becoming kind of a hot topic in the insurance world for most of us. And I'm going to broaden this even to personal lines, our home, our auto policies, is a lot of folks are seeing increases on their policies. And that is industry wide. That is nearly all carriers right now are increasing rates on property and auto, those lines of coverage specifically. And that is a result of this hard market that we are in currently. And insurance is a cyclical thing. It moves between hard and soft markets. And this would be considered the hardest insurance market that we've been in 2 to 3 decades. And what that means is carriers, because of poor loss history and the increased cost of claims that have been paid over the past 2 to 3 years, is forcing them to do this. It's forcing them to increase rates to carry enough adequate reserves or money ultimately to cover the risks that they're insuring. And so we're all affected by this. Regardless of us having a claim, we're generally feeling this increase in our insurance. And it is necessary to an extent. We don't like it. We don't like that we're getting increases, in some cases pretty notable increases, but it is necessary for the industry, is a response to some pretty poor loss experience or higher claims activities in more recent years. So that is a discussion that we have with many, many of our customers so they understand why this is happening. And it's not to be forgotten that most of us need insurance, whether you like it or you don't like it. It is a necessary thing and it's an important thing. And understanding why the market changes, I think that's important. So you at least get a little context as to why it's happened. That's a very broad picture of the insurance world right now. I think I'll just leave it at that. And of course, if there's other more specific questions, I'm happy to get into it. So I'll send it back to you, Kathy.
Great, thank you, Mike. We had a program with one of your colleagues a few years ago, and we had quite a few people in attendance, and they were young entrepreneurs. And I was really extremely impressed with the knowledge of all of your agents in terms of exactly, what an entrepreneur should think about when they're starting a business, that liability coverage, workman's comp, all kinds of things like that. So we really appreciate your firm and others in the area and all that you can offer business owners in the region. So thank you for that. So with that, we have 30 minutes left, and now it's your turn to ask your questions of our experts, whether it's for John, CPA accounting questions, Mike, business insurance, or Tammy, anything related to grants and loans, mainly loans, and what's available. So we do have a few questions here already. And again, please feel free to type your question in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. So our first one is from Helen. And she says, if you have a brick and mortar, if it is your primary residence, how does that affect capital gains when you sell? I'm assuming, John, that one's for you.
Yep, that sounds like my area. But yeah, basically you'd be able to consider the portion that is your personal residence that would be eligible for the 250 or 500,000 exclusion, and then you would pay capital gains depreciation recapture on the business portion. So there would have to be some sort of allocation at that time of the sales price between the business portion and the residence portion.
Okay, thank you for that. Deb is asking mortgage interest deduction. If the mortgage is on rental property, is that interest still deductible regardless of when the mortgage originates? John, that's for you as well, I believe.
That would be correct. Yeah, generally speaking, your personal residence mortgage interest is still deductible depending upon your loan amounts, but then also any mortgage interest incurred for rental property would also still be deductible.
Okay. All right, Rich is wondering about, are most property trusts and S corps that need to be registered, or are family property trusts a different entity?
Depends upon whether or not the family trust would be required to register with their particular state that they're based in. Probably question on that more for your attorney than accountant, but certainly the S corporations would be subject to the reporting requirement.
Jen is asking about grants. We are a manufacturer located in the Fort Worth area. We mainly provide products to distributors, wholesalers, and dealers, but we also have a website where we sell our products. Question, does my company fall under retail? Tammy?
Yeah, thank you. So it's very possible. It really depends on your specific NAICS code. As far as grants go, as I mentioned before, there really aren't grants. However, I would reach out locally to your Fort Worth economic development folks in that general area to see if they're aware of anything that's local down there. Certainly, we don't have anything on a federal level that I'm aware of, but there may be something very localized there.
Thanks. And then Kim wants to know about for a resort, what items are taxable?
For income tax purposes, certainly you would have any of your room or cabin rentals would be taxable. And then there's probably those, as they're considered short-term, less than a month, I believe is the limitation on that. That income would also then be subject to sales and probably a room tax.
Someone else wants to know, John, are gift cards donated to clubs or prizes considered cash or non-cash?
Those really wouldn't be classified as a donation per se. I mean, the gift card presumably goes to the charitable organization, which then auctions them off, gives them away, whatever the case may be, to an individual. And then that person comes in to the establishment and redeems that card. And in a normal transaction, they sell a $25 gift card, they're getting $25 for that gift card. Whereas if it's given to an organization, they don't get that $25, but yet someone still comes in and redeems that card. So rather than a direct charitable contribution, it in essence serves as a reduction of your overall sale proceeds.
Okay, thank you. Kim is following up with a question, I think, John, also for you. Cleaning, boat rental, gas for boats, booking fees, etc. I think wondering if those are taxable or not.
Those would all be taxable for income tax purposes and more than likely for sales tax purposes as well. The whole sales tax issue is very confusing and obscure. There may be, taking a look, I guess, as a good example is for an electrician. Basically, anything that he would do that concerns anything behind the wall would not be taxable, but then anything from the wall to an appliance or whatever would be considered taxable for sales tax purposes. And there's a lot of nuances in the sales tax law where something, may be taxable for sales tax purposes, but something very similar may not be. So it would be a matter of, sitting down and going through each of the items individually to get an exact determination.
Okay, thank you for that. Andy, this question is from Mike. Remind me of the name of your company and do you insure bars, restaurants?
Our agency is Clinner Insurance. I didn't mention this earlier, Andy, but Clinner is an independent agent, and I should specify on that. So as an independent agency, we represent multiple carriers, insurance carriers. We're not a captive agent, such as State Farm is an example that just represents State Farm and the products they offer. So we represent many great insurance companies, and many of those companies based right here in Wisconsin, in fact. And that's great for our customers because we tailor that to their needs. Not everybody is a fit with a certain carrier, depending on what it is that they do. So, and then to answer your question, we absolutely do insure bars and restaurants. It's a big bit of business for us, and we have those all throughout the state of Wisconsin, in fact. So the answer is
you have an office in Eagle River, you said? Oh, sorry.
We do. Yep.
You do. Okay. You will be hearing from me.
That sounds great, Andy. We'll do our best.
Hey, follow-up question. You guys don't do health insurance, do you? Because I have a health insurance question as well.
We don't. That's the one thing in the insurance world that we respectfully pass to the other folks that are more experts in that field.
Okay, no worries. I had a question about tax credits with that because I don't plan on making too much money this year. Do you have any insight into what that even means? Like I went at healthcare.gov. They said I had a $400 tax credit based off of my projected income. Any idea what that means?
Yeah, basically, if you're going through for health insurance through the marketplace,
Mhm.
as you fill out the application, you give them your anticipated level of income.
Right.
And based upon that, your premium may be set at $1,500 a month, but if you qualify for a $200 a month credit, your net premium then would only be $1,300 a month. And then that is all reconciled at the end of the year when when you file your taxes to see whether, you can get, more credit back at the end of the year, or if your income was higher than anticipated, there is the potential to have to pay back some of that credit.
Okay, but if it were to remain the same as I projected, nothing would change. I wouldn't have to pay anything back or get any money back in return.
Presumably, yes. Mhm.
Presumably. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great questions, Andy. Thank you. Here's a question from an iPhone. Does SBA provide loans to nonprofits, specifically a church? We need an elevator and a building and other building updates. Tammy?
Yes, thank you. So unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible for SBA loans. It must be a for-profit business. There was some muddied waters back from the PPP days because there was a situational change for the specific to the PPP program that did open it up to churches, but unfortunately, that was very specific to the PPP program, and SBA loans really must be done by for-profit businesses.
Okay, thank you. John, is there a higher type of tax break for IRA types versus a Roth IRA? And what's it off to apply the tax break to the last business year? What's the credit off to apply for the tax break? You understand that, John?
Yes and no. Basically, yeah, your IRA is probably the lowest level of contribution where, you can put the fewest dollars in there. The cap is much lower, I guess is the best way to say it, where, you can put in $7,500 into an IRA, depending upon your circumstances, and that's the most you can do. From there, then, depending upon your employer, or if you have your own company, there's also the simple plan, which you can go up to approximately 15,000 of contributions. And then above that would be a 401k plan, which would allow you even higher contributions. So it'd be a matter of, what your individual circumstances are, and, what you're, best trying to accomplish.
Okay, great. And I got a question this week from a business owner looking to see if there were any, again, grants or loans or any funding out there for, this is a for-profit business looking for funding for interior structural repairs and some exterior. Tammy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. So definitely SBA loans can be used for those purposes. And depending on the size of the loan that they need, depending on, a number of different things, there are different programs available. I know, Kathy, you and I talked about one a little bit earlier that was probably under $50,000. And in that particular case, I might suggest that if they're unable to work with a traditional lender on that, so a local bank or credit union, the nonprofit lenders are really a good option for that. And specifically in that area, I know that WIBIC does some statewide funding up in that area. They host both our microloan program as well as our community advantage program. And there's advantages to each of those. It really is very specific to the project that that particular business is looking for. So I would suggest that we do have a listing of SBA lenders on our website, sba.gov/WI, that will list all the Wisconsin lenders, including the traditional sources, your banks and credit unions, as well as those nonprofit entities. I do believe that along the northern border of the state, Entrepreneur Fund also does some micro lending up there as well. So there are a number of different sources, and they can talk to the loan officer at that particular organization to see what the best program might be in that case.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. And that always is the case, right? Is that business a for-profit? Is it a nonprofit? And clearly, as you just mentioned, there's different options available to different entities out there. And that's one of the values that I'm really proud that we offer here between myself and our board of directors and our colleagues, Nicolay and the SBA and UW and others through our financial institution that we partner with representative on our board and others like Associated Bank who are sponsoring this today. We have a wealth of knowledge out there, and we're more than happy to have business owners, entrepreneurs talk with any of them. They're happy to sit down and talk with you about your options. Please know that that's always an option, even just like John is today, who's on our board, and Mike through Clinner, who's a colleague, and Tammy through the SBA. So we really appreciate all of those collaborations that we do have. Here's a question from Pete. To clarify, businesses can use the EIDL drought declarations from last summer to address lack of participation needs that are developed this winter. I believe that answer is yes. Tammy, do you want to answer that?
Yes, that is correct. And depending on the county that you're in, again, I did supply the information to Kathy, so she has that locally there. Depending on the county that you're in, there may be multiple designations or multiple expiration dates for the application process. But yes, that is the case. They can apply under the EIDL program under those designations.
And as you mentioned, any business that would be interested in doing that, those application deadlines are due in May. And there is paperwork.
There is paperwork.
So it's not
for
free
those,
money.
yeah, for those of you that may have gotten an EIDL loan during the COVID EIDL times, the application process is very, very different under traditional EIDL programs. So because of the sheer nature and quantity of the EIDL programs during the COVID EIDL times, there was a very simplified application process that was developed after the first few weeks of the EIDL program. It was very easy. It took less than 10 minutes. The normal EIDL application process is very different. You will have to submit financial statements. It is a longer process. So if you're familiar with COVID EIDL, it's totally different for regular EIDL. Not that it's not as good of a program, but they go back to the traditional EIDL terms. And you will have to submit financial statements. It is based on credit worthiness. And then, it'll go through that process. Typically, it takes maybe, it could be as quick as a couple days, but I would say expect a couple of weeks for an approval on an EIDL loan. During the COVID EIDL times, because of the sheer quantity of applications that were coming through, very often it took much longer than a couple of weeks. But right now, I would expect that it's a normal processing time. But do keep in mind that those EIDL processing centers are processing applications from disasters all across the country. So whether it's hurricane disasters or tornado or, drought in other areas, whatever the case may be, they are processing from all across the country. So just keep that in mind.
Great, thank you. We also have a question. Does SBA provide loans to freelancers, contractors?
Yes. Yeah, I'll always say it depends because, a lot of those terms are kind of used rather loosely. So I would say overall, the answer is yes, and get in touch with your loan officer for exact details on that.
Okay, thank you. Kim is following up with, what are the loan rates?
So for the EIDL loan right now, the interest rate is 4%. That is for a 30-year term. So again, it's a very attractive loan program for this type of circumstance. And again, a 30-year repayment term keeps those payments real low.
And that's fixed.
That is fixed.
What other, in the last few minutes we have here, any other follow-up questions that any of you have? I think this has been just a great discussion. There's a lot of information here. John, Mike, and Tammy have all offered to provide their contact information. Either reach out to me and I can provide that for you, or to them directly if you have their information. Happy to connect you with them. So that's what we're here for. And I think, did we have another one come in? Regarding sam.gov, I am not sure if someone can advise me about the entity administrators. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so I'll take that. As far as sam.gov, that's on our government contracting side. I know just enough information to be dangerous on that. However, we do have folks in my office that this is all of what they do is the contracting information. If you want to go ahead and send me an email, Jen, I will get you over to my contracting guys and they can answer that question for you.
And if each one of you, just to be easy, if you want to just type in your John, Mike, and Tammy, just put your emails into the chat for everybody, that would be great. And in addition to that, please do follow up with me because I would love to know if there's other topics that you would like us to cover for a Lunch and Learn in the future, whether it's expanding an hour on just one of these topics, just on insurance or just on, CPA and then accounting work, QuickBooks, any of it, or government loans and what's available. So happy to drill down on any of this further. We did have a tremendous response to our program last month on digital marketing and advertising, and so we will be following up with another program on that. But I want to extend our thanks again to Tammy, Mike, and John. The information you provided, I know it was short, but it was really important and really gave people a sense of your knowledge base, clearly how you can help them in their business, whether they're an entrepreneur or a current business owner. So thank you to all of you. Our thanks again to Associated Bank for sponsoring this program and to really all the financial institutions that we work with out there. We really appreciate your collaboration and partnership. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for joining us.